Beginning again with the intersection at Riverside and I-35. I've mentioned this intersection before with its sweeping turns. I recently read an article by Strong Towns about infrastructure or pedestrian greenwashing that shows how cars that are accelerating on a sweeping curve like this tend to not slow down or yield for pedestrians. Link in the description. My own experience crossing this intersection coincides with their findings. The way to improve this intersection for people would be to remove the slip lane and require a sharper turn further up. The lane itself would be infilled and the extra lane moved forward to be closer to the rest of the lanes. Not as good for a high flow rate when the convoy comes through, but it is also safer. Now, since this road acts as a collector, drivers would hate this, having to slow down a little bit and everything. I've actually thought a good bit about how I would redo this intersection and Riverside entirely. Maybe I'll share that sometime in a City Skylines video. But if you're wanting a hint as to what that would look like, drivers would hate it. And I am once again calling for your attention to notice that the interstate is moving about as fast as I am. I've had European viewers point out that this hike and bike trail would be considered dangerous in their countries since pedestrians and cyclists are mixed. Look, just don't tell the Dutch about my videos, they'll have a heart attack. This is Rainey Street. This road is famous for formerly being houses that are now bars. This place gets packed. It's crazy how many cars and people are squeezed into here on the weekends. I've heard that there was talk of potentially removing cars here before lockdown. It really needs to be done. The sidewalks literally can't hold all the people that come here. Maybe put a painted bicycle path down the middle, remove the parking, and forbid everything except locals and trucks. Recently, though, there was some commotion because existing condo residents wanted to block the construction of new condos near Rainey. Pretty typical of America. We are so free, we can prevent others from building housing on their own properties. Maybe we could call this the Great Condo Block. Now, one thing I don't think we want to have happen is that the entire street becomes surrounded by towers and turn into the Shadowland. This incident reminded me of the right to sunlight laws in Japan. While enforcement may be so-so at times, the idea is that you can't block others from having sunlight, so there are limits as to how much light you can block and at what times of the day light is required to hit how much ground. This has resulted in some of the oddly shaped buildings with angled tops that you see in Japanese cities. See the links in the description for Urban Land Use Planning System in Japan on page 40, and also the Tokyo Files Urban Design. I realized a bit too late here that this is for pedestrians. It felt pretty awkward going down it. This road isn't a high-capacity road outside of getting people to or from Rainey Street, so I think we could definitely take that left turn lane out and use the extra space for a bike lane. This is actually a pretty nice-looking train stop. Right now, the train is 2 cars long and arrives on a half-hour schedule during rush hour and once an hour after that. Last departure from downtown is 7:20 p.m. The recent metro expansion bills, Propositions A and B, will be expanding the car count to 4 cars. But with this schedule, I don't think I'll be using it even though there are places that I would like to go along the route. It's fine for commuters to downtown even though only people in the first few stops can actually fit on it right now. While I'm not saying this about this line in particular, it does remind me of how American cities tend to do vanity projects that let them cut a ribbon to say they built a large new transit center or a station or whatever. But it's done in such a way that its ability to perform is handicapped. This line actually does serve morning commuters, but it'd be nice if it was useful beyond getting people from the furthest suburbs into town, just for their morning and evening commutes. So to get here, I've taken a bit of a roundabout method so that I can get to 3rd Street through 4th Street and have more protected bicycle infrastructure. It's a slightly longer route and I had to pretty much ignore Google Maps the entire time. 3rd Street is one of the few bits of cycling infrastructure that follows best practices. It's about 6 feet wide, has a physical barrier between you and cars, and has dedicated priority lights. The next best thing to do would be to time the lights for 20 kilometers per hour or 12 miles per hour for cyclists. It was a bit frustrating to finally get some speed just to have to hit the brakes again. I recently read of a study that estimates stopping to increase cycling transit time by 40%. But what stopping made me appreciate is some of the niceties that they do in Copenhagen, where they actually give you a footrest at intersections to help you keep propped up. They also angle garbage cans towards you so that it's easier to throw your trash in without littering. Here I made a left turn because I was trying to go by a recommended path from memory, which is why I pull over for a second to confirm my route in a little bit. The main reason for deviating is that there's an intersection further down that's easier to navigate off of the road I'll be going down rather than from the main road. I also chose this path because roundabouts tend to slow down traffic a bit depending on how they are done, and since it's in a neighborhood road like this, I figured if I come down the road with a roundabout, cars would be more inclined to go slower than they would if it were a four-way intersection. Do you notice anything weird here? Take a second. You probably don't because we're so used to it. I'm only a few blocks away from downtown, and I'm already into detached single-family houses. A few blocks from downtown in a city where people are paying $100,000 to $200,000 over asking price in cash for homes. I mentioned before that most of Austin is zoned for SF3, or Single Family 3, though I mistakenly said SF1. Let me read the standards to you for that real quick. Minimum lot size, 5,750 square feet or 534 square meters. Minimum lot width, 50 feet or 15 meters. Maximum units, 1. Maximum building coverage, 40%, meaning the building cannot take up more than 40% of the lot. Maximum impervious cover, 45%. That's the house plus driveway plus sidewalks. Maximum unit height, 35 feet. Setbacks, front is 25 with smaller ones for the sides and rear. And it's no wonder that we can't find space to build homes. Now, if you look at Japan, in contrast, they have a much less restrictive zoning law. And it was actually hard for me to find the exact requirements because I was kind of expecting more. From what I can tell, though, it's mainly based on the maximum floor area ratio, or the amount of floor space to lot size. There's also the concept of maximum level of nuisance, so you can build anything you want as long as you check the boxes up to what is allowed. For the floor area ratio, doubling the floors essentially doubles the floor area ratio. The municipality in Japan can choose certain amounts ranging from 50 to 200%. Based on Austin's guidelines for SF3, the most it seems like you can get is 80% if you have 2 floors. Let's play a game. How many zones do you think Japan has for the whole country? This is for RICO, or Residential, Industrial, Commercial, and Office. Pick a number. Give it just a sec. Here's an illustration of Japan's zones. There's 12 for the whole country. Japan's zoning laws are non-Euclidean by nature. I'll get to that in a bit. And there's a chart for what can be built where. Essentially, if you have something like low-density residential, you can also have low-density commercial unless it's exclusive. This allows people to run shops out of their first floors and live on the second. See Urban Land Use Planning System in Japan PDF Google Drive link in the description. Now, guess how many zones the city of Austin has? I'll give you a second. Oh, the traffic light in front of me, by the way, it has a light to let you know that it sees you as a cyclist. That's pretty cool. And it also looks like that the bicycle lane ahead of me is closed, so we're going to do it live. Back on topic. Here's Austin's. We don't even get pretty pictures. Japan as a country has 12 kinds of zoning standards. Austin has 42. Now, guess how many different kinds of zones America as a country has? I've read somewhere that if you consolidate them by similarity, you get somewhere around 100 to 120. Now, back to Euclidean zoning. Euclidean zoning is the kind of zoning where you can only do one thing. I used to think that it had to do with something like Euclidean physics or space, where people make non-Euclidean games where you can walk down a tunnel and get smaller or fit more than 4 rooms into a space that looks like it only has 4. I'll put a link in the description to some. They're pretty cool. I recently found out that the reason is not nearly as intelligent sounding. It comes from a town in the US called Euclid. this town fought the courts to be able to make the first version of what we now call Euclidean zoning. Care to guess why? I mean, it totally couldn't be because they desperately wanted to keep black people and minorities out of white neighborhoods, could it? Yep. It was. Now, why did I think that America would base the foundation of its society, where people live, work, and have fun, based on something that at least sounds intelligent? I don't know. But of course, it's racism. But back to the road, the traffic light in front of me at least has a separate light that gives priority to bikes, so that's cool. Fun fact though, in Copenhagen and the Netherlands, they'll have large intersections with bicycle lanes coming from all directions. And the way they manage the intersections on the lights is they say, okay, everybody go. And then everyone just kind of figures it out without hitting each other. How about a priority intersection for bikes here? Wink wink. I am asking to be spoiled a bit here, but it does kind of suck to finally build up some momentum and then have to slow down again. Just here, I signaled that I was going to go around, and the person in the car behind me slowed to give me space. So thanks. This reminded me of a video I watched a while ago about one of the designers of cycling infrastructure in the 70s. He believed that the best way to bike was to signal and take the road. Being assertive rather than timid could be better for everybody, though I understand why some would not want to see who's better at occupying a given piece of space. The way this intersection here is done, I'm not really too wild about. They want to separate potential crossing lines at the intersection by forcing it further back. Now I'm going to be sandwiched between two cars on the left and right with maybe a foot between them. I think it'd be better to keep the cycling lane where it was and just give a priority light so bikes go first. But for good intersection design, see Junction Design, the Dutch cycle-friendly way link in the description. That design involves granting more space around the corners of intersections so bikes can make a left turn by going around, rather than putting a bike lane between a right-hand turn lane and forward-moving traffic. I actually like these kind of back alleys like the one I just went through. It's a safe place for residents, and I would be totally fine with letting my kids play here. And you can kind of tell that I'm taking a bit of a roundabout way to get to where I'm going. This is because I'm trying to avoid going on the main road that's just in front of me at this point. Now there's a lot more that I'd want to be able to talk about, including Austin's bus rapid transit system that I was planning on doing on the way back, but with the video now at 12 minutes long, I think I'm going to put that in a part 2. Thanks for watching.